we're handing over to George now from Leeds City Council.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. That's quite an act to follow. I think that the thing that strikes me about Gateshead is just how many different heat sources there are going into a single network, which just gives it a huge amount of resilience, which is something we're aiming to do in Leeds. So what I'm going to do today is just give a quick whistle-stop tour of what we've built in Leeds. Next slide, please. I'll look at what we've built, why we built it, have a look at the 3 phases of growth. I think we're unusual in that we built our first phase just prior to HNIP coming along. So I'll talk a bit about that and some lessons learned, and then talk a bit more about phases 2 and 3 with HNIP support and what we learned from those. And then just look to the future as well. What are we aiming to do over the next sort of 5, 10, 20 years? Next slide, please. So if we take a look at kind of why we got involved with district heating in the first place, it was predominantly because we had an opportunity that landed on us, that we had to get rid of our municipal waste. We needed to build an energy from waste plant. So we took the opportunity then to locate that energy from waste plant relatively close to the city centre, which meant that the waste wagons weren't disappearing off into the rural hinterland to drop off waste. They were right within the city centre, but critically it gave us that opportunity to bring in low carbon heat. The big thing we did was work really hard with our directors and with elected members just to get the message across about how much this is a kind of a win-win opportunity. There's a really clear political message about using spare heat from burning waste to keep vulnerable people warm. And that message really helped us to get the large investment over the line. Next slide, please. So in our phase 1, we built everything you can see there in orange, which from memory was around about a 12-kilometre network, starting down in the bottom right hand at the energy from waste plant, running a transmission line about 3 kilometres long up to Saxton Gardens. So that was essentially a bridge, a large diameter pipe just to get the heat in towards the city centre. And then we had about 2,000 council flats that we connected as part of our initial phase 1. Next slide, please. So in terms of the lessons that we learned from delivering that project, it was clear that there are circumstances where local authorities are best placed to lead and deliver heat networks. For this particular project, it didn't make financial sense because we planned to build a network that was oversized with all the key elements designed to take all the 20 megawatts of heat available from the energy waste plant and bring it into the city centre. But with only 2,000 flats as your key customers, it doesn't have a business case. So what we did, we worked with our members to present to them a number of kind of realistic scenarios, from kind of worst case to what we thought at the time might be a best case, and just got them comfortable that we could invest and using our planning powers and our convening powers, we would likely then bring a whole bunch more customers onto the network over time. But if you present that to the private sector, they'll say, fine, we believe you, but you're going to pay maybe 12, 13, 14% for the privilege of having a non-de-risked project. So we took the risk. We took the risk and believed that we could do it. It's also really important that you prepare ahead of district heating. So we spent a long time working with our planning colleagues. We developed a local development order, which just gave pipes permitted development rights, which made it much easier for us to lay the pipes. We had a planning policy which supported encouraged developments to connect. Already mentioned before, senior support, really important to get directors on board. We spent a huge amount of time talking to customers. From sort of 2013, 14, we were engaging with customers, and interestingly now, some of them are only just connecting, so it takes a long time to get some customers over the line. We did a huge amount working on the business case and putting funding applications together for a range of sources. We also learned that the procurement stage is incredibly important. We identified that if we were going to build a network, we had to have a really strong partner supporting us. So the way we felt we could achieve that was by using a procurement which was design, build, operate, and maintain. So D&B is absolutely standard, but we added a 12-year O&M contract with 2 5-year extensions onto that. And the reason we did that was that by giving our winning bidder 22 years of operations, it just guarantees quality. They will build something that they are then highly motivated to want to operate. And we also built into that procurement the requirement to support us to strategically grow the network. And again, it just helped to make sure our interests aligned, that as the network grows, naturally Vital gets additional O&M costs coming through from delivering more heat to more customers. So bringing people together so that you're working as a team was absolutely critical. We also included within it a lot of social value targets. So we've helped to generate, I think, over almost 500 local jobs and dozens of apprenticeships, and delivered presentations to schools and colleges and a range of other sources. So it's really helped with the social value that we're all trying to deliver to our local areas. On the less positive, construction phase is hard. You never quite know what you're going to come across. And the critical thing there is having a good team that is working together with a really open and honest culture, so that where issues arise, then you work together to address those. So we deliberately use the NEC form of contract, which encourages the early warnings and the working together to rectify issues before they become major costs to the project. And then my final point is land. It's the single biggest risk. We had a very small amount of land we needed to cross with a gas pipe to connect into our energy centre. It ended up costing over £1 million in about 2 years to solve that particular problem. I'm not going into details, but I have the scars. So next slide, please. So then, having built the first phase of the network, we are highly motivated to grow. We knew we had to add customers onto the network in order to make the business case turn a corner and start to break even. So we delivered under 2 HNIP phases. Phase 2 was essentially everything on the kind of left-hand side of the screen, going towards about 5 major corporate buildings. And then phase 3 was a series of small extensions to clusters of customers, where by joining them together, we were able to strategically oversize pipes and serve a range of customers, and then have onward connections to allow future growth. So our phase 2 was around about £2.5 million of HNIP investment. It took place between September 2019 and then early 21. The innovative thing about that project was that we were doing a major piece of public realm work. We closed the main bus route through the city centre in order to completely transform the street scene. So we worked really hard to make sure that we got as much to align as we could. So we worked about 2 to 4 weeks ahead of the public transport project to drop pipe in the ground and then allow them to come along and do their work just behind us. It was incredibly fraught, incredibly hard work, but the impact on the city was brilliant in that we closed a major road once. And we did that kind of Carlsberg of utilities, where we dug a hole, we put pipes in the ground, and then somebody came along and resurfaced it after us. So it was a really nice integrated piece of work, and allowed us to work in a really difficult, busy city centre in a way that allowed us to minimise the impact on the people of Leeds. Phase 3 was very different in that we had these 5 small extensions, so we were able to work quite effectively in a way that just allowed us to work around the other construction projects taking place in the city. We're able to change the sequencing of works to minimise the impact on the city centre. But the great thing was that it allowed us to open up a number of sites where new private developers were operating, and we've now got, I think, 3 major new private sector residential developments connected to the network. From having done this work, we've now got about 2,000 flats, about a dozen commercial sites connected, and we are now negotiating with about 40 additional sites to connect. So the the key thing that we said to our decision makers was that if we build this network, they will come, and it's now interesting to see that that's coming true. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of some of the customers we've got connected on. It's a range of new and old buildings in a range of different sectors, from developers to education, government, healthcare, and of course housing. So next slide, please. Picking up on the lessons that we've learned across the 4 years that we've been kind of operating this network. The thing that became very clear about a year and a half ago was that having energy from our main energy source being energy from waste just allowed us to decouple from the energy shocks that were hitting most of the industry. So our heat is indexed with RPI. So gas prices doubled, tripled. Ours went up by about 7% in 1 year and 10% in the next. So having that low carbon heat source that isn't a major utility is a huge benefit for a network. So really important to look at where industrial waste heat is available in a city. Another main lesson that's come our way is that developers now really highly value decarbonised heat. So there's very few developers who are looking to push ahead with a gas development now. They're all really looking at heat pumps or district heating, and district heating tends to outperform heat pumps in pretty much every circumstance. So it's a much easier sell than it was just 3 or 4 years back. We found that government policy is very consistent, very supportive. We've had a number of really supportive policy developments over the last few years, from taking away the what's it called, business rates on district heating. That was a real boon for us and allowed us to move towards break even more quickly. And then things like zoning and regulation are also really supportive. I think zoning's a massive game-changing opportunity. I'll touch on that in just a second. Another thing we've picked up is that local authorities don't have to directly lead. We took the decision to own and operate the network. If I had my time again, we probably would go down a joint venture route from the beginning as a way to bring in additional private sector investment and tie the private sector partner more directly into the work that we're doing. But district heating has created a massively positive story in the city. We've had articles on BBC Look North and Calendar and a whole host of print media stories. All of them are very positive, lots of interest, and politicians love it. They really get the benefits that this is bringing to the people of Leeds. Question is, would we do it again? Next slide, please. Yes, we would. We're now working on our phase 4 network. Next slide again. We've got an application in for Green Heat Network fund support for 2 areas. One's a small extension similar to our phase 3. The other one's a very major extension into the South Bank. This is about a £60 million scheme connecting into a glass factory operated by Veralia, taking waste heat from that with an interconnection over a river back into the Leeds pipe network to make sure we provide that resilience to both elements of the network. We're also looking at getting heat from data centers to provide the additional low carbon heat in different points. So it's a hugely beneficial scheme, and the reason we're now able to kind of step up to this sort of scale is from all the experience we've got from successfully delivering our phases 1, 2, and 3. And then just the final slide, please, is just looking ahead to the future. So we've been part of the heat network zoning pilots and the advanced zoning program, which is looking to accelerate the growth of heat networks through zoning. So this slide here just shows our main network in orange in the centre. The South Bank is outlined in purple, and then there's a grey area down to the southeast, which is another energy from waste district heating network that SSE are developing. And then the overall kind of orange zone is the indicative zone that we need that we could designate within the city. Estimates are that it's about 650 gigawatt hours of heat demand, 175 kilometers of network, 650 million pounds of investment. To put it in context, we currently supply about 30 gigawatt hours of heat. So we're talking about something which is orders of magnitude bigger than the network that we've already delivered. But again, building on the experience that we've got today, we think we've got the right partnership in place to help us to deliver this really ambitious and game-changing network. So I'll leave it there.